Good evening, Love Bay family, and welcome back to the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. I'm your host, Felicia Fishoff, registered psychotherapist and founder of Rooted in Resilience Psychotherapy and Wellness. Tonight is Real Talk, where we come together for honest, meaningful conversations about mental health, culture, and community. And before we begin, I just want to acknowledge what a special evening this is. Tonight marks my 50th episode as host of the Mental Health Hour. And tonight marks 1 year, actually tomorrow night, since I first stepped into this role. It's truly been an honor to share this journey with all of you, and I'm so grateful you've been a part of it. Thank you for continuing to show up, engage, and make this community what it is. Now, let's dive into tonight's conversation. Tonight's episode is titled The Healing We Inherit: Black Joy, Wisdom, and Community Care. When we think about healing, we often think about what needs to be fixed. But tonight, we're asking a different question: what has already been healing us? For generations, Black communities have carried wisdom, strength, faith, storytelling, music, mentorship, and collective care through both joy and adversity. These aren't simply traditions. They are protective factors. They are sources of resilience. They are reminders that healing has never been meant to happen in isolation. So, tonight we'll explore the healing that exists within our families, our cultures, and our communities. We'll reflect on the wisdom we've inherited, the legacy we hope to leave behind, and the ways community care continues to support our mental health and well being. Before we begin, just a gentle reminder that while we discuss mental health, healing, and personal growth, this show is for educational and community support and is not a substitute for therapy, medical advice, or crisis support. And if something resonates with you tonight, we encourage you to share it with someone who may need to hear it. And as always, the chat is open. And without further ado, I want to call up the Real Talk panel, Roxanne Francis, she's amazing. She does the Therapist Lounge. She runs her own practice. She is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, someone that I have high respect for. I call her my sister. Miputus Pie. So Roxanne Francis, who's been an amazing, amazing addition to our Real Talk panel. Next is Charlene Lex, coach, registered psychotherapist who has the cutest cheeks in the world. Another sister from another mister who just is really passionate. And when I tell you that she just loves people, when she does her work, she really just slows things down. And try having her as a friend, guys. I'm telling you. She'll be like, okay, so how are you experiencing this? I'm like, sure, please. Come on, girl. All right, all right. And also we have Shanique Victoria Edwards. She is brilliant in her own right. She coaches, she consults, she talk XYZ ABCD all over town. She's been a part of Black Mental Health Canada. Girl, welcome, welcome. And she's also another amazing colleague and friend. And we also have Natasha Pennycook, another powerhouse in the field. She is a registered psychotherapist. Girl, and she has that swagger. You know, Natasha has that swagger, ladies. Like when she walks into the room, damn, you have to turn your neck because she just carries this poise and elegance with her, and she brings that into the therapy room also. All right, you see how I changed it up tonight? Okay. Well, welcome, ladies. It is episode number 50. 50. And I'm so glad that it falls on the Real Talk episode. Oh my goodness. When I counted it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's 50. Tonight is 50. I'm so excited. And I think that we couldn't have chosen another great topic than we did tonight. We're talking about Black joy and the healing that we inherit. So, why does the Love Bay family need to be talking about this tonight?
I think a lot of times we have and experience so much trauma within the society that we live in, within our communities, that when we're able to actually have these kinds of conversations about Black joy, this right
Mm,
here it's transformative because we know how to do joy. We know how to experience joy individually, collectively, and so it's about time that we have spaces where we're actually discussing things like the Black joy experience.
beautiful.
And I would add too, joy is what essentially helped not only, us survive through things in our day-to-day lives, but also it's helped our ancestors, right? They would sing and they would gather and they would eat, and all of those things were, depictions of joy being lived out. And that's the thing that was what essentially helped them get through really hard things.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, man. All I know is that I can go through a really, really hard time. But there's just even getting together with my sisters, there's a spirit of joy that comes. As you don't know, when we laugh, you can hear us down the street.
Mhm.
We turn it's
Mhm.
infectious, it's deep, it's like this ancestral feeling that erupts on the inside, that despite of the things that we experience, there's just something deep down that helps us to keep moving forward.
Mhm.
And I really feel like that joy is a part of that, and it's inherent to who we are. It's like stitched in the fabric of who we are.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
100%.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And I think anytime we are disconnected from joy, we're disconnected from ourselves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Woohoo! All right, go on with the thing.
I
Mhm.
it was interesting because I recently was doing a training on like Black and African psychology. One of the things that they said was, you know, in terms of how do we get back to ourselves? Because that's oftentimes when we're going through the throes of things, we're disconnected from elements of ourselves. And it's where can we find joy? Where can we find peace? Right? And how can we infuse those into the moments that we have, right? And we cannot always sometimes physically access that joy within because of the things that we might be juggling. That's where peace comes in because it gives us the ability to kind of recenter ourselves, reconnect to ourselves so that we can then access that joy that is innate to us.
Mm, mhm, mhm. Absolutely. So, what are the barriers to this joy that sometimes, especially as we're going into the summer, I want to make sure
Mhm.
that we are carrying joy with us throughout the summer because we have waited way too long for this warm weather.
Mhm.
And while we are soaking in all of that vitamin D, I think that we want to also try different ways to, um, I don't know, like evoke this spirit of joy. So, what are some of the barriers to this joy that we talk about?
Definitely.
Miserable
Yes.
people.
Mhm.
What did you say, Charlene? I didn't catch that.
I said definitely busyness, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that so often we have so many things on the go, right? It's like when you look at your to-do list, oh my goodness. There's like you get up in the morning till the time that you hit your head hits the pillow, there's so many things that you have to do. And there's so much pressure that you're feeling for all of the things that is on your list, right?
Mhm.
So very easily you can lose your joy, right?
Mhm.
And so it's
Mm,
then figuring out in the midst of the busyness, how do you then attune to the joy that is within you and all around you? It's both and.
Mhm.
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 mhm,
Mhm.
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 To your point, Charlene, I think there's the idea that things that are related to joy are not productive. right?
Mm.
It's like
Ooh.
it's if it's a waste of time. You know,
Mm.
who has time for, the kiki, the
Yes.
laughter and the hanging out, and there is this idea that we
Yes.
must always be producing,
Mhm.
and that's a
Mm-hmm.
fallacy. It's leftovers from forced labor that our ancestors
Mm.
had to deal with, right? Like,
Mm.
Yeah.
we are only as good as what we can produce,
Mhm.
and anything
Mm.
else is not allowed. And even people who had participated in the slave trade were uh, were intimidated by people
Hmm.
gathering and laughing, people having a good time, people relaxing, people engaging with each other. Just gathering was
Mhm.
illegal, right?
Mhm.
And so, we have to be really intentional about going after the joy that we need, right? I go
Mhm.
so far as to tell some of my clients to schedule it in.
Mhm.
Schedule your
Mm.
fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we can be so caught up with this idea that we must be productive and there's nothing else,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Funnily, Roxanne, just to piggyback off what you just said, joy is resistance. Joy as
100%.
resistance, right? That
Yes.
as we go into the summer, that's the mindset, right? Like
Mhm.
again, coming from that ancestral perspective, what if
Mm-hmm.
joy was the way that you finally resisted what your ancestors couldn't?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. I think that there's something unifying too about that joy, because even as you were sharing, Roxanne, and you were talking about that feeling of intimidation,
Mm.
like I was thinking about like why would us exhibiting joy feel intimidating?
Mm.
It's because it is unifying,
Yeah,
and I think that there's power in that.
that's
Mhm.
You know.
exactly right. It's a power. It gives us strength, right?
Mm.
A happy person is a strong person. A rested person is a strong person.
Mhm.
When you take a break from your labor and you have some fun and you connect with your people, when you go back to the labor, you are more creative, you are more focused, you have ideas,
Mm.
all of the things that come. You are now motivated because you were encouraged by the people that you spent your time with, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, um, people who are, particularly Black people who are rested and joyful,
Mhm.
are resisting and quite effectively so resisting oppression,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
right?
I think that joy needs to be guarded, right? Like I
Mhm.
jokingly said before, when you asked what was one of the barriers to joy, and I said miserable people, but it's a real thing, right? Like they will latch on like leeches, and I think
Yeah.
sometimes because the idea of joy, as Roxanne was saying, sometimes is not necessarily framed or defined in a very positive light. We don't safeguard it as much as we should. Um,
Mhm.
and I think if we're able to start to really kind of look at it as, yes, it's resistance, it's a strength, it's a superpower, it is the thing that I can anchor on in the midst of everything else. I think it might shift how we put boundaries around it to ensure that
Mhm.
we're not losing it. Um, once we're able to kind of latch on how we also, take in joy, or how we experience joy, because everybody
Mhm.
experiences it differently, right?
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I think the questions that we get to ask ourselves is, does our joy matter? Especially when we
Mm.
get to a certain age, right? Because it's like when you're little, your joy matters, right? You see a kid, you blow bubbles and they're happy, right? They're joyful, they're jumping around, they don't need much, right? And then we get to be a certain age and all of a sudden it's like we're not able to actually experience that same kind of like burst of joy
Mhm.
in the same way, right? And
Mhm.
so I think in order to reclaim it, we really do have to start having these conversations with
Mhm.
ourselves. Does my joy matter to me? Even
Mhm.
if it doesn't matter to everybody else around me, does my joy matter to me? is it important to me? Because if it actually is important enough, then like it was said before, schedule it in.
Yeah.
I think the joy is important, but what I have found is that there are either people who are different from us, or maybe older adults who package your joy away and tell you you're being too idle, or you're being too loud with that laughter, or you need to go find something productive to do, right? There's almost this that is irresponsible, that kind of laughter, that kind of reckless abandon sometimes, right? That kind of, it's almost like it's you're being irresponsible with that, right? And as a result of that, a lot of people, they tuck their joy away. I see sometimes a lot of client, well, not a lot, but I see particularly young girls, they will be laughing and they cover their faces, right? Almost as though I can't have, open laughter, right? Young Black men, I see, I catch them with a little bit of laughter, and then once they catch themselves, they mean mug it away, right? Like, I'm too, I don't know, I'm too cool for that, or I'm too tough guy for that, right? It's almost like that is for children, and I'm an adult now, and I don't get to do that anymore, or that's not expected anymore. Now that I'm an adult, I need to be serious. And so I make a point of it, of, being silly and funny and loud in our home. We have dance parties and tickle fights and pillow fights, because it's important for me to, well, it's important for me to express joy. And it's important for us to share with our children what that looks like, and that it's okay. Like, I would chase my 14-year-old around the house just for fun. Like, right? Because he's already getting to that stage where, boys in high school, we don't, we're supposed to be serious, and so I challenge that, because it's really important to be able to access that. You hide that away, and the stressors of life will come at you, and it will also come at you physically, right? It's really important.
That is powerful. And ladies, we have someone calling in with us today. So yes, please feel free to put them through. Welcome. Oh, it's our first caller. I'm excited. Hello, hello. Okay, so while we wait, thank you so much for sharing that. And Roxanne, I think that there is something that is so powerful in instilling those qualities in our children, right? I love the tickle parties. I love a good tickle, man. I'm chasing my kids around the house. I'm like, come here. And I think that I also see that resistance even in my eldest as well. So it's like, oh, I'm too cool for school. I said, no, we're going to laugh today. We're going to dance. So I know if I put on some Michael Jackson, I'll get him. So, and it's important, right? It's important to foster that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think about too, growing up, I think my parents did try to do their best to infuse, joyous moments. But, I also recognize the fact that for, the better part of my childhood, they were in survival mode. And I think part of also how I could, kind of take their legacy of hard work and put it into something that is, conducive for my life now, is to allow myself to have those moments of joy, because they never really got to have that because of their survival mode.
Yeah. Survival mode really does rob us of a lot of things. I have a friend of mine who, her family was a family of immigrants, and she was the only one who spoke and read English. And so from a very early age, she was translating. She was at the lawyer's office. She was at the bank. And so because of that, she didn't have time for joy in her childhood. And so she became a very serious person at a very young age and had very little patience for play or what she would call frivolity, right? And it's now in her mid to late 40s that she's rediscovering joy. She's rediscovering play. She's going back and getting her 8-year-old self, just trying to recapture some of that, right? Because it's a miserable existence to live your life without laughter, without joy, without exploration, without discovery, without freedom.
Mhm. Mhm. I also feel like you can get to a point where you've gotten so used to kind of living without it
Mm.
that kind of getting to a place of accessing it or even knowing when you are accessing it, right? Like you can have moments when you're laughing, but you still feel disconnected from yourself, or you feel
That's
disconnected from the environment that you're in. And so, I think one of the things, perhaps maybe we could talk about too is, how do you kind of get to a place where you are able to be present in moments when perhaps maybe historically I couldn't?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that our caller is online. Hello, are you there? Hello.
The controller literally destroyed itself. When you use the analog stick on it,
Okay, so I think we're still having some connection issues. Okay, so we will try again a little bit later. Unless, can you ladies hear her? No?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll just keep trying to connect our caller. Um, all right. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So just moving on. Yeah, so we're moving on to Black joy, right? And the things that connect us. And again, the chat is open, guys, so feel free to jump in for all of our listeners that are tuning in tonight, right? Natasha, I like your red man.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, girl. Hello, girl. I was like, wow, see that fire red? I love it.
Listen, we're talking about joy. Wearing bright colors brings me joy.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Girl, I love a good yellow. I love a good orange. I love a good red. Oh man. If you have a good red lipstick, I tell you, it just boosts the mood.
It brings joy.
It brings joy. But these are the things, right? We have to find ways where we can embrace the joy. So like what we put on and how it elevates the who we are from the inside out. I think a lot of times, especially in a North American context, we tend to gravitate towards the black and the blues and the grays and those monotone colors, which when we reconnect with our culture and our heritage, the bright colors, those are the things that have been historically connected with joy, right? Putting on those bright colors, the costumes, all of those things, they help to just embrace that piece of us. So I try really hard to bring that color into my wardrobe because for me, that's joyous and joyful.
Absolutely. I can't lie. When you were talking about colors and our culture, I was thinking about our food. Our food is colorful. I was like, why do I always think about food every single time? But I was like, wow, a nice piece of pear or in other parts of the globe they call it avocado, but we call it
Avocado.
pear. Don't ask us why we call it pear. It is just called pear. Okay. Right, a nice green piece of pear. Even like our sorrel and the richness of the red and
Yes.
the pine, the
Mhm.
mango, everything is just so
Mhm.
colorful and
And vibrant.
vibrant.
Yes.
Ugh, I could talk about food all day.
Food is one of the things
But
that
go ahead, Shanice.
I was just gonna say, food is one of the things that can bring people together. And
Exactly.
like you have a good meal, like for me, a little bit of ackee and saltfish with a fried dumpling and a little bit of roasted breadfruit. I'm happy. I'm sitting there, nothing can faze me with that.
No.
Yeah.
So
A nice orange piece of pumpkin. Come on. Yeah. I tell you.
And even as we talk about our cultural foods,
Yes.
what we think about as we're talking right now, I'm sure that we're reminiscing to times that when we had those foods in childhood, right? Those are things that stay with us. Those are things that create core memories. These are traditions that are passed on. These are things that help with the joy that we experience, right? These are things that we can pass on, that are passed down from our grandparents to our parents, through us to our children, nieces, nephews, godkids that we have, children in the community, right? Because even though we might have difficult times, or we may have had difficult times, I'm sure each of us can remember a particular time in our childhood when we sat with this person or sat with this family and we had this particular dish, and we can remember the smells, we can remember the sounds, we can remember the laughter. These are things that help to strengthen us for the journey, right? These are things that remind us of community. These are things that remind us of who we are and where we're from. Despite the hardships that we might face now, we remember that we are from these people who have gone through these things, and they used to cook that food, and we used to gather around and talk and laugh about these things. And you remember that you're a part of something bigger than the person that you see in the mirror, and it's a part of your resiliency.
Yes, absolutely. And even as you were sharing about that, like I was just thinking about how grounding that is. And I know that for a lot of people in our culture, maybe meditation might not be something that they enjoy, but these are things that are grounded, that helps us to stay grounded. That when we think about these moments, we connect to a part of ourselves that sometimes we forget. So that smell, that feeling, that moment, these are things that when we're feeling even overwhelmed, like we could use these things to really help us ground ourselves in the present. It doesn't have to be a tree or walking through the forest. If you don't walk through the forest, you don't have to use that. You can think about your mother's delicious oxtail and the smell and the feel of the meat in your mouth melting off the bones. You can do that. Yeah.
I think we're all ready to go and eat something now.
Yeah, right? Oxtail, right?
oxtail has to be the oxtail for Felicia, for sure.
I tell you, there was one session with my own therapist that I had to talk about something really difficult. And then I brought my mother's oxtail. And I said, I brought my oxtail today. She's like, all right, it's that type of session. And I did season that bowl of oxtail with my tears, but I ate the whole thing. I did every rice grain, and it was grounding for me. It was safe, right? All right.
I love it.
It's really interesting because in this part of the world, especially like within psychotherapy, we love to talk about things like your nervous system regulation and things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. What we don't actually realize is that intrinsically within Caribbean culture, within Black culture, we actually have ways of regulating that we take for granted. right?
Mhm.
So we've been talking about food, but really what I want you to see is that there is a way that for us to actually co-regulate our nervous system with other people by eating food. When we sit around and we are laughing and we're talking about it and we're eating, we're actually co-regulating our nervous system with us, with others, right?
Mhm.
I'm thinking about like even memories of being little and it's mango season and
Mhm.
all of the mangoes, and then you have them in a pile in the center, and you and all of your people, whether it's all of your friends from school or your family member, just sitting around in a circle and you're just eating mango after mango, like literally not with a knife that you're cutting like a,
Mm-mm.
Yeah, man.
no, with your
Mm-mm.
teeth, right? All the
Yes.
mango juice dripping down your arm. The
Yes.
sun is shining on you, the birds are chirping, you're
Yes.
smelling the fresh air as it hits you. That right there is visceral. All of
Mhm.
those feelings come up, right? And that is one of the ways that we co-regulate that I think we take
Mhm.
for
For
granted
granted.
in
Yeah.
our history, in our story. And we need to start to then really recognize how important those moments really are and reclaim.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I think that these are some of the reasons why when people migrate to different countries, like for example, I'm thinking about here in Canada, maybe people might migrate here, they it's like they lose that part, right? And then there comes a grief with that when they can't find it because they don't know nobody. But
Mhm.
because those moments are co-regulating, it becomes a huge part of how we live and we function, how we socialize, and all of that is
Mhm.
important to our well-being.
Absolutely.
Girl, I'm coming to your house, Shar, for some mango. So you better open up your backyard and put down a nice blanket and come with the mango. Or, we can all bring a box of mango. How about that? So it's not all on you,
Thank you. That's helpful.
So one brings some Julie mango, someone else
Mm,
wait, you don't like Julie?
I love it.
Oh, okay. Right? Okay, all right. Yes. Yes. The East Indian mango. You guys like East Indian mango?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. All right. What is your other favorite mango? You guys have other favorites? You're no respecter of mangoes.
Just bring them all. Bring them all.
Yes, as long as
Bring
they're
them all.
All
right
right.
from the tree. That's how I like my mango.
Oh,
Right.
Fresh.
This is about put them on the truck when they're green. No, I
Mm-mm.
want them right
Mm-mm.
blank.
Right.
Right on the tree. Mhm.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
oh man.
Which
Okay.
is making me think of a vacation. Like I'm like, that's
Yes.
joy, just
That is joy.
being
Yes.
able to change of scenery, exploration, exploring something new that you've not done before. I
Yeah.
recognize right now with, gas prices are coming down, but still, there's still, a bit, rough there. But, I think challenging ourselves to kind of think outside of the box when it comes to joy. What is something that you've always wanted to do that you've never done yet? You never had the time to, you never, it just wasn't something that you thought you can access. Can you give yourself permission to access that now?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think that's the important piece, like giving yourself permission to access. And I know we've touched base on that in our previous conversations, but when we bring the joy factor into it, there's so many times where people around us, whether in our friend circle or clients networks, people are okay giving other people permission to access joy, but not themselves. And it's
Mhm.
starting to recognize that that's part and parcel of the issue, that people do not give themselves permission to access joy, or joy is thought of as this faraway thing meant for someone else that is beyond the grass. So even being able to schedule it, right? Schedule the joy, schedule the walks in a park, or time with the kids, running around, time to lime and share a meal with friends. Like those are things that are joyous that I think we've forgotten as a community and as a people and as a culture, being able to go back to access joy. There's a lot of clients that I work with where they say, the goal of therapy, they want to be happy. But when I ask them, what does happiness mean to you? It's like, I don't know. It's like they're waiting
Mm.
for someone else to give it to them, to give them permission,
Give them
or to put it in
permission.
their lap, right? So it's really
Yes.
getting back to, how do I give myself allowance and permission to
Yeah.
access joy, and not joy based on, the facials and the spa days, but that pure joy, just like to be happy, to have fun, to do something creative. And we don't do that enough, and we do have to get back to that as a people.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's something to be said about the fact that we all have this inner child. And a lot of our inner childs are just bored right now because we're not giving them anything to do that's fun, right? And I think that it's so important to check in with that inner child on the inside and be like, what is it that you need, right? And when I ask clients this, sometimes they're like, oh, they want to color. I'm like, all right, then go get a coloring book and go color.
Mhm.
Like, get some paints from the dollar store. It doesn't have to be expensive, right? And oh, they want to go outside. Okay, go for a walk or go to the nearest park and swing on a swing. Just not the
Mhm.
baby swing because you might get stuck. But I saw a video the other day and someone went into and then the firefighters had to come. So just let me be very clear: the adult swing, don't go into the baby swing. I mean that was inner child central, but but just do check in with yourself because you still have those desires to have fun, right?
Mhm.
It might not look
Mhm.
like going on a roller coaster, right? Because there's some things you put away when you're older, right? But
Or
if
not.
Or you don't have to.
That's
Yeah,
it.
Or
Yeah,
not.
or
Lots of
not.
adults love roller coasters. Yeah.
Yes.
maybe it's just my own heartstring. Let me talk about my own heartstring. I can't handle roller coasters anymore, especially those rickety ones where you're like, and I'm like, you know. But if that's your thing, then do it. Like do those things. If it's going camping, go camping. But it's okay. It is okay. And that little child on the inside is still wanting to engage in these
Yes.
things,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
they don't have to stop, right? So, yeah.
I think one of the ways that I enjoy just watching joy is watching my son just play and go around. The kids are always at our doorstep. I'm going to charge them rent for my front porch, but they bring their own chairs. They bring their own chairs and they sit on our doorstep, and they're there all night talking and playing games, and their bikes are all over. And just being able to do that, right? To commune together, to come together, to just have a space where it's fun and they can just be. And I think that's one of the things too. There's so many spaces that put identity on us that we
Mhm.
cannot be. It's so
Yeah.
important that, again, we're scheduling that time just to be with other people who understand us, who get us, that we feel safe, and that we feel like we belong, and that we feel that we have a shared identity, just to be, right? And that in itself is so grounding, and it's so necessary, because we're navigating this world that's hard, that's challenging, that comes with a lot. There's this time where we have to be, no, I'm not taking that, I'm just going to be today, and whatever that means for you, just being.
There's an art to that. There's an art to finding spaces that, I always encourage my clients, where are the spaces where you literally can like kick off your shoes, put up your feet, and they're just going to be like, you just be you today, girl. Because you're fabulous just the way that you are. Even if you don't want to talk, you don't want to engage, or you do want to talk and you do want to engage. But I think there's an art to, I kind of come back to that word permission. Give yourself that permission to be, because when we talk about healing, it's about all the masks we have to wear. It's about all of the things
Yes.
about all of the things that we have to carry. But that moment that you actually, are able to, I'm going to let that all go. I'm going to put that off to the side. Maybe I'll have to pick it up tomorrow, recognize it. That's just the world that we're in. But for this moment, I'm going to exercise, my internal responsibility to myself and just, be.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I love that, Shanique, because I think that it does look different for everyone. And there's some moments where stillness is what you need.
Mm.
And that will bring you the most joy, right?
Mhm.
Just that moment of quiet where you can hear your own thoughts and feel your feelings and be present in the moment. And then other times it may be louder. And
Yeah.
that is what brings you joy. And just giving giving yourself the permission to just live in that moment and
Yeah.
enjoy it.
I remember a girlfriend said to me recently, her birthday's coming up, and I was like, "Oh, what do you want to do for your birthday? You know, it's a big birthday." And she's like, "I just want my house to be clean, and I don't want anybody to touch me. Like, that's all I want for my birthday." I was like, "Wow, like you don't want to, no cake, no party. No, I just want the house to be clean and nobody to touch me."
That's hilarious.
Do you, sis? If that is what
Yeah.
joy on your day, sometimes that's all it is, right? It's nothing
Yes.
huge or spectacular. It's those little things that, because of our busyness, because of the productivity pieces, all of that, we don't get to really enjoy it, right? We're in the throes of doing it all the time, but we don't get to sit back and really like take it all in.
Mm.
And I think that's the other thing to think about as well, that joy is unique to each individual, right?
Mhm.
What one person's, Charlene might love roller coasters. That's not Felicia's thing, right? Or she might not. But, there are adults who love the excitement, and there are others who just want a clean house, right? There are some
Yeah.
people who love being amongst, a big crowd of friends and people, and there are other people who just want quiet and solitude, right? So and we can't put someone down because
Mhm.
of what they find joy in. We have to allow people to have their time.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting. As I'm thinking about this idea of joy, I'm thinking about intersectionality, right? So the intersecting of joy with peace, but also with like safety, right?
Mhm.
Because in order for you to really experience joy, you need to actually feel a sense of safety even within yourself, even if your situation is not the greatest.
Mhm.
And so, even as I'm kind of like just kind of kicking around that idea in my mind, I'm curious for everybody here,
Mm.
how do you experience joy? What do you do?
Mm.
Oh, I love that question. It brings me back to what Roxanne, you were saying. It depends on the day. There are days when I want the clean house and I don't want anyone to touch me. And there's days when I'm like, no, we're going out, we're putting some soca on and we're dancing and
Mhm.
so it really depends on what the mood is. And it's important
Yeah.
to be able to know self so that you know which part of yourself needs what in that day.
Yes. 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 Sometimes joy looks like being amongst all the people, and other times joy for me is when all the plans get canceled and I get to be in my couch in my PJs watching Netflix.
Absolutely.
It can look like
Yes.
different things on different days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I learned, joy is also, my ability to change my mind. I can be a little bit type A.
Yes.
Know me, know I'm very type A. Once we have a plan, we have a plan. My friends will always say they never have to call me to confirm if I'm going to be somewhere because Shanique is going to be there. We have the plan. But I've had to learn that I have to be flexible, right?
Mm.
Perhaps maybe it is me kind of being like, you know what? I thought I was down to do this, but I'm not. You know what? What would make me happy in this moment is literally just to sit here on my balcony with my, little sourcey tea and just,
Mhm.
have my moments, right? Whatever that might be for you. But I think flexibility is the word that I pair now with finding my joy, and that it could change from moment to moment throughout the day. Maybe I wanted to do that, but I can give myself permission to do something else, and releasing myself from the guilt, especially if
Mhm.
somebody else was supposed to be involved with whatever I was supposed to do that was going to be joyous.
Mhm.
I feel really guilty about the fact of being like, but I don't really want to anymore. But I've had to learn to be flexible and release myself from that.
Mhm.
So you are listening to the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. Tonight on Real Talk, we're exploring the healing we inherit, Black joy, wisdom, and community care. We're reflecting on the wisdom, traditions, relationships, and acts of care that have sustained Black communities across generations, and how these strengths continue to support our mental health and well being today. And speaking of investing in the next generation, we'd like to take a moment to share an exciting opportunity from the Love Bay family. Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio is proud to present the fourth annual Voices of the Millennials Youth Summit, taking place on Saturday, July 11th, 2026, at Humber Valley United Church in Etobicoke. This inspiring event brings together youth, students, professionals, entrepreneurs, educators, and community leaders for a day of networking, mentorship, meaningful conversations, opportunities for growth. As part of this year's summit, Love Bay Radio will once again be awarding $1,000 scholarships to Canadian post-secondary students in the following priority areas: medical sciences, law, justice, and community leadership, skilled trades and industry development, hospitality, tourism and service excellence, media, communications, and public relations, STEM, business, and finance. Recipients will also be considered for internship opportunities through Love Bay Radio. Applications are still open, and the deadline to apply is June 30th. So if you know somebody that is going to school, come on, spread the word. To learn more or apply, please go to Love Bay Radio Events 2026 at gmail.com and send us off an email, or call us at 437-778-3299. Again, that's love, not LOVE, but LUVBAY events 2026 at gmail.com. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Download the Love Bay Radio app from the Apple App Store or Google Play, and visit lovebayradio.live. Again, that's LUV, bayradio.live, to support the station with your donation. Your support helps us continue bringing these meaningful conversations to our community. And if you'd like to join tonight's discussion, again, please call us at 437-778-3299. We'd love to hear from you, because when we invest in our youth, we invest in our future. Now, let's get back to our conversation tonight. Amazing. Oh, I think we have something in the chat. Let me take a look. All right. Oh, thank you, Petronella. Petronella says, congratulations on your 1 year anniversary on the Mental Health Hour. Oh, how time flies. Girl, I tell you, the passion you bring each week and meaningful conversations continuing to change lives each week. Thank you so much, Petronella. And honestly, I couldn't do it without this community. Honestly, we do this together. And it has been such a joy over the past year being host of Love Bay. It's been fun. I'm telling you, it's a lot of fun. And the Love Bay family is a lot of fun. I'm telling you. So they can't get rid of me in a long time. I'll be an old lady. Okay. All right. Oh my goodness. Amazing. Amazing. You know, I was thinking about what we were talking about prior to our metro, right? And we were talking about just being authentic in the way that we find joy, and like giving ourselves the permission to be okay with like what it feels like in the moment. And then I was just thinking about my favorite word in the whole wide world, which is boundaries, right? And being able to guard that. And because I think sometimes a lot of us, even though we know that we need to, like, we want to experience joy in a particular way, sometimes we feel bad expressing that to other people and telling them that that's maybe what will bring them joy in the moment is not what we need in the moment. So how do we actually like set those safeguards around our joy and be able to give ourselves the permission to be okay with saying those things, expressing those things, and I guess safeguarding it for that inner child?
thought you were gonna say your favorite word was oxtail, but
Oh, that is my second favorite word in the whole wide world. Boundaries, oxtail, very good.
But one of the things that I do oftentimes, share with my clients is, sometimes the anxiety of having these conversations because we just don't know what to say. And I think sometimes having some scripts, right? Well, what are some things that you can kind of pull out in those moments that you've already considered, right? And those things those scripts sometimes can be the thing that helps you put in those boundaries, or at least start to have those conversations. And so, maybe sometimes it's, one of the things I had to learn is because it was hard for me to say no was, let me get back to you. That became my, go-to script about that. Let me get back to you. Let me think about it. And then that was able to progress to, no, I'm not really interested, because I was able to kind of wean myself off of the guilt that would come from just saying no outrightly and being perceived as if, I'm being selfish or whatever would come to my mind in those moments. But that's something that I sometimes encourage is, to be able to start to have that conversation with boundaries is having some scripts that you've developed already in advance.
Let me pray about it.
Yeah.
That's for cheese for no, I'm not going to do it.
Your parents used to say that. I'm gonna pray on it, and I'll let you know. You knew.
Oh boy.
I think sometimes it's anxiety, right? You're feeling anxious because the people pleaser part of you really
100%.
wants things to just be smooth with other people. And so the idea that you would then say no, right? That is then activating that part of you, right? That part that just kind of feels like, oh, but I don't want to be on the outs with that person. I don't want them to be upset at me, right? But the truth of the matter is that if they're upset at you because you could not do something, that says a lot more about them than it does about you, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have to at some point weigh it to see what's more important to you, right? Is it more important to you to then just kind of go along and do everything else that everybody else wants you to do all the time, just so that you actually keep the peace with them, but you're not feeling that internal peace? Or is it time to then start really weighing it to say, okay, what do I feel like I can do? What do I have capacity for? Yes, I have capacity for this, but not for that. So the more that you actually start living a little bit more authentically and stop abandoning yourself, the better it's going to be over time. Maybe the person will be upset, but you know what? They might also start respecting you a little bit more because they're actually then going to respect your time when you can show up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're going to be upset because they're not getting what they want. I think we have to remember that too, right? That intrinsically people want to get what they want when they want it. So people are going to be upset to your own boundaries or to our own boundaries because they're not getting what they want. So it's about figuring out that, okay, what do I need in this moment? How do I not internalize or hold in or pull in the hurt and pain that's coming from them, but really being able to figure out okay, do I actually want to do this? Is this actually going to benefit me? And if not, then that's a no. It could be, I'll pray on it. I'll wait till God tells me yes, but we'll see. All of those different things. But I think having scripts are a great idea. I use that with clients a lot who tend to struggle. So I'll have those 5 things. I'm like, okay, these are the only 5 things you're going to say, and just recycle them until it becomes that second nature, right? Because it does take time to practice. And it's back to the allowance, that permission to give yourself that permission to show up, to be able to access the joy and be in the joy. It's a lot of no one else is going to do it for you.
Absolutely. And how do we tap into the wisdom? Because I know we talked about the joy tonight, but what about the wisdom and the community care? What can that look like?
We carry a lot of inner wisdom that we don't give ourselves credit for.
Yes.
Our ancestors have passed down all kinds of family wisdom, community wisdom that we sometimes think are old wives' tales.
Mm.
You know, North America would have you believe that it's not civilized because it's not evidence based, because there are no clinical trials. And I'm not knocking evidence, I'm not knocking clinical trial, but there's a lot of Charlene, you okay?
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm like, yes, tell them.
But there's actually a lot of there's some work being done now that will credit some of the knowledge that our forefathers had. These ways of knowing, I like to call it,
And being.
are now being tested with science.
Mhm.
And researchers are beginning to say, wow, there is actually merit. And I'm just like, really? Right? You know, Caribbean ancestral knowledge, African ancestral knowledge, indigenous ancestral knowledge that have kept our people going for decades and decades and decades. And, you know, now it's being whitewashed and presented as hibiscus drinks instead of, you know, sorrel that we drink at Christmas time. You know what I mean? Right?
Don't even get me started. I said hibiscus. How about that? Oh, it's comfort. I said, oh, sorrel.
Sorrel. Exactly. Right? Things that our you know, religious leaders might have done in the past, like the church mothers who've spent when they're going through difficult seasons, they will be fasting and praying. And now, oh, intermittent fasting is the way to go, right? There's all kinds of things that are being recycled and rebranded and presented to us as new and improved, when it's really just our own ancestral wisdom that's being repackaged. And so it's really important that we don't throw away where we're from, and you know what we've been taught, you know, how to soothe a sleeping child, a crying child. You know, there's a story that my mother tells all the time. I had a really bad cough as a baby, really bad. And she had a dream that her grandmother, her maternal grandmother, came to her in the middle of the night in a dream and said, don't let that child die from that cough. There's a whole, you know, bush of whatever it is back there that's behind the house. Go boil some, strain it, and give it to her. And she did that. And after 2 days, my cough was gone, just gone. Right. And so it's really important that we hold on to some of these things. Yes, we want to weigh them against what makes sense, right? And again, this is not medical advice. But we really need to be mindful of some of these things that do have merit. And if we're not careful, the whole idea of progression will have us throwing that all out.
Absolutely.
And there's space for both.
Yes.
Right? There's space for both. And I think that's the piece, especially in North American context. We live in these silos. It's good, bad, happy, sad, black, white, right? Like there makes no space for both. So being able to use that ancestral wisdom, use what the grandparents and our ancestors have brought in, use the different plants and the herbs and all of these things that have medicinal elements for healing and for joy, along with some of the other pieces, right? Like there's space for both. And I think that's the important thing. There are so many people that I speak with on a daily basis who are just stuck in the one way. It's really about time that, you know, we open up that intersectionality and look like there are space for both, because we are multifaceted people. So it makes sense to go through multifaceted ways of healing and knowing and being, to access that joy and that wisdom and that community care.
Absolutely. And I think that there also needs to be a connection between the different generations, because I feel that sometimes we can get disconnected from the generations that come before, right? Like And my mom used to say, Felicia, drink tea, it will bust the gas. And I'd be like, Mom, Mom. And now, you know, now I'm going to my mom like, Mom, what should I do for this? And what, because I know that she has knowledge that has been passed down to her, and
Mhm.
you know, I want to be able to pass that legacy down to my kids. And I think that there's something to be honored in the even the previous generations as well, and gleaning that wisdom as ancestral wisdom, so that we
Yeah.
don't lose it for
Yeah.
these like fads that are popping up and thinking that, but it was like, you're right, it has been recycled back to us. And
Mhm.
I'm telling you, my mom was right. Tea does bust the gas. I'm telling you, it does. It really, really does. You know,
Oh, that's hilarious.
when you have a stomach ache, what do you reach for? A cup of tea, right?
Mhm.
You reach for the ginger. You reach for
Mhm.
everything. You know. So,
Mhm.
but Cersei, I draw the line. I'm sorry. I will
Listen.
not drink the
For
Cersei.
you.
I will not drink the Cersei though. I can't. I
For
can't
you.
take the bitterness. But
I
for
was
those who
gonna
can
say,
handle it,
so bitter. So
power
bitter.
to you. Power to you. For all of the veterans that can drink a good cup of Cersei. For those who doesn't know what Cersei is, it is a very bitter bush that they boil. And you could smell the bitterness the more they boil it. But apparently it does work and it does help. But
It's good for your blood. It cleans your blood.
I
Yes,
love
when you
my
need a
mom.
good clean out.
I love my mama. I will always say this, but my mom used to give me a little cup of Cersei like this because she knows I hate it. That she would sweeten it with condensed milk
Mm.
and tell me to drink it. And she would stare. She's
Wow.
like, if you don't drink it, I beat you.
Oh man.
And so I'm there.
Joy.
The
But
tears.
wait, now tell me, how does condensed milk help my blood? Can somebody tell me?
No idea.
I did drink it though, because I was afraid of beating. So so anyway. I love you, Mom. So yes, the ancestral wisdom.
I will jump in and say just around like regret, because I think part of being just part of the diaspora of people who've migrated from one part of the world to another, where the customs here are very different. It means that we've actually lost some of that knowledge and some of that ancestral wisdom.
Mhm.
And I remember my grandmother. My grandmother's from Dominica. And I remember her like in our backyard in Antigua picking all of these different leaves and all of these different bushes, and she knew exactly what to boil or to use for different ailments. And it's something that as you get older, you find that regret within you that I didn't pay more attention as a child, that I didn't listen to her more and understand the properties of the different like bushes and leaves that she showed me at the time. Um, I think for me, that regret just it sits on my heart a little bit heavy in this season of my life. That being said, I still have this sense of appreciation
Mhm.
walking the land with her and watching her pick all of those things and watching her actually boil those bushes and pouring the tea, you know, and giving it to you, right? Like I miss that. There's again a peace and a joy, right? That comes in with the grief around it, right? Of the loss. It's bittersweet, right? Um, and I'm also thinking about like my grandparents playing soca and then just swaying your hips and dancing to it, right? And recognizing that nowadays we talk about bilateral stimulation within EMDR. And what
Yes.
is soca music except for you just right in your waist? And that right there, we don't need any fancy gadgets. We can just do it with that, you know?
Mhm.
And so all of these things that, has been passed down, all of these things that even though our ancestors have tried to pass it down, that have been lost just because of migration to different parts of, right? And yet all of the things that our generation is still trying to reclaim and to teach the next generation after us, right? It's a complex and a nuanced story. And that's what I'm kind of sitting with right now, right? And there's still joy with it, but man, there's heaviness too.
You know, Charlene, if I could, as you were talking about the complexity, what came to my mind was, even though your grandmother was very knowledgeable in picking the leaves and what to boil for what ailment, I'm sure she had hopes and dreams for you. And here you are living out those hopes and dreams, right? I am sure she would love to have seen your children go on to a post-secondary education that probably she would not have been able to afford, right? And so sometimes when we reach for the next thing, it requires us to let go a little bit of the last thing. And it does result in complexity. And it doesn't always mean you have to hold on and let go, but in many cases you do. And so there's that complexity. There's that excitement of what will happen in the next generation as you are making room and space for your daughter to go on and do great things. But then there is that regret, that sorrow of not being able to bring that ancestral knowledge into today's world, you know?
Yeah, both ends. You're right.
Actually reminding me of, so one of my little joy things is my plants. I love all my plants, names and stuff. Anywho, new plants, and it was baffling me because it looked like it was growing, right? It sprout off these new leaves, but every time it sprout off a new leaf, one of the other leaves would start dying. And I was like, what is going on with this plant? Like, I'm moving it around the house. I'm doing all this type of research on it. And then finally, I just decided I was going to ask ChatGPT, took a picture of it and asked ChatGPT, what's going on with this plant? And it was interesting because this particular plant, every time it births a new plant, it utilizes all of the nutrients,
energy,
in order for it to grow and for it to birth. And it literally births out of one of the stems of the other leaves, and you can see how the other leaf that is dying, it slowly begins to like fade and brown and pass. And I haven't cut off the one that's starting to die right now because it's actually a beautiful process. This idea of, in order for something new to come forth, something else needs to pass, but it's not passing in vain because it's passing all of its nutrients, all of the things that into that new leaf that is growing, and that leaf is growing beautiful. It's nice, it's green, it's strong, right? And it's hold on to the other ones that are there with it. And as you were talking, it just kind of reminded me of that plant that there is this loss that happens. But within that loss, there's so much extraction, all of that wisdom, like what we've been talking about, is inherited in this new leaf, right? That next generation. And it keeps on going, and it keeps on going. And it's not a sign that you're a bad gardener or you're not great at keeping your plants alive. It's actually the opposite. It's a sign that you're on the right track.
I think that is so beautiful and such a testament to that ancestral wisdom and the joy that is passed on. Yes, there's been lots of pain, lots of sorrow, trauma, but there's also been a lot of joy and a lot of resilience. And I think that, as we're having this conversation, and we had previous conversations to come and have this conversation, but it is looking at how it all fits together and making space and room for it to fit together, that out of the previous plant or the previous ancestors' pain and struggle, there's been able to be joy that has been passed on for the next generation, to not start on to not start new and fresh, but to start already lifted up. And I think that's what we have to remember, right? Like in the joy that we're speaking of and that we're experiencing, that we get to embrace, that there has been previous generations that have gone through different things to be able to uphold us up. And now we're here doing the same thing for the next generation. So there's this really beautiful interplay and dynamic that comes with joy and wisdom and care that I want us all to really take forward, and to be able to embrace some of the difficult, but how are we turning that difficulty into resiliency so we can turn it into joy and thriving joy, right? It could be something so beautiful and so lasting for the next generation, for us and for the next generation.
Makes me think of, Alicia always kind of starts off with, why is this a conversation that the Love Bay family needs to hear about, right? And I think, Natasha, as you spoke about it, we have to talk about it because we were given it as a gift. Now we're creating space for it so that the next generation can go out there and try to find these spaces where they can talk about it and understand it. We're creating that, right? So that when they kind of get to a certain space, we know Black joy. We got Black joy. This is what it looks like. It might look a little bit different for them than it did for us, as it did for the others. But I think, this is exactly why we need to be having this conversation, is because I never had spaces growing up where we had a word for it. I knew what it was, I could see it. But I didn't know that it was, one of my strengths, one of the things that I had that was innate, something that I could access. I think now, we are creating a space where we're bringing forth that type of language.
Clock that, girl. Clock that. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think tonight is such a beautiful conversation. And, I'm so glad that we had it tonight, because I agree with you, Shanique. Like, these are the conversations that we are now beginning to pave for those that come after us, to let them know that it's okay to feel that joy. It's okay to swing those hips from left to right.
Yes.
And it's definitely okay to enjoy that oxtail and everything in it. And that mango, and just everything that goes with that, And one thing I wanted to share as well was, Shar, when you were talking about just that ancestral wisdom and the beliefs, I was like, wouldn't it be beautiful to just do a pilgrimage at some point in our lives and still have someone who's maybe local to the culture that understands the different leaves and learn from, because I know people still know which leaf to pick and which, and I know for myself that I've been like, oh, I need to go back to Jamaica. I need to go back. Like, there's just something, my heart is and it's more than just the beach. I think it's just, I want to feel that connection again, right? And I wonder what that could look like, because I know that even sometimes people go to the motherland, right? Yes, Africa and the different nations within Africa, and people go and they have this pilgrimage where they reconnect with their ancestors and their heritage and their history. And so what does that look like, for us, even as we have those longings and those desires?
I think it's interesting because one of the things I did last summer was I actually got my kids their passport from back home.
Perfect.
Right? And that was just this beautiful experience, like taking them to the consulate, sitting there, right? Finding out that the person who's like the consul lady actually was married to a cousin of mine, right? And it was just a unique and interesting and important. It was a significant experience, so that the kids actually felt a connection point, right? They're not just Canadian, right? When they got when they went through the process and they got their passports, they opened it, they saw their faces, and they saw this other place that they belonged to also, right? So as you're talking about pilgrimage, right? And what does that look like? We all can do it in different ways, but man, that is one way that I chose to do it with my kids, around going, what does it look like to go back home?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
I want a juicy patty. That's what it means for me.
I think we should have a love day episode in Jamaica. Maybe we
Oh,
should
that
talk
would be nice.
to
Yes,
and see if we can make that happen.
that would be amazing.
Felicia can finally get her oxtail.
I
Authentic.
want I want my guinnep. I want my bami and fish by the seashore. Oh gosh, I have a list, guys. Jamaica, I need you. All right.
You know what? To be honest, why don't you write to? I mean, this is not to segue too far, but you should write to what is it? Tourism Jamaica.
The Jamaica Tourist Board, yeah.
They always love to have people come out. You never know, they might sponsor us to come out.
Tourism Jamaica, we
Yep.
need you. All right. The Real Talk panel would love to come. Come on.
Absolutely. Live on the air from Jamaica.
Live. Yes. We'll bring all the vibes. All the vibes.
Jamaicans always take over though, like always. Like it always has to be Jamaica. Sorry,
You know, we can tour all of the different areas. Is that
That's
right?
right.
That's okay. Like, I'm no respecter of islands. I'm no respecter of persons. I'm telling you. Yes.
I'm all for the island hopping. I'm there.
Yeah. You know? All right. This is, yes, let's go. And thank you, Love Bay Radio. They say congrats to you and the Real Talk team. We love you, Love Bay family. Amazing, amazing. So, as we come to the end of tonight's conversation, I hope you're leaving with this reminder that healing doesn't always begin with something new. Sometimes it begins by remembering what has always been there. Tonight, we reflected on the healing that already exists within our communities, the wisdom passed down through generations, the stories that shape us, the faith that sustains us, the mentors who guide us, and the relationships that remind us that we were never meant to carry life's burdens alone. We also celebrated the importance of Black joy, not as the absence of hardship, but as an act of resilience, resistance, connection, and hope. Healing isn't only an individual journey, it's something we cultivate together. My heartfelt thanks to our incredible Real Talk panel, Roxanne, Shar, Shanique, and Natasha. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your lived experiences, and your thoughtful reflections, as always, and this evening. Thank you for helping us celebrate the strength, compassion, and community care that continues to sustain us. And to everyone who joined us tonight, whether you were listening live, watching online, or sharing your thoughts in the chat, thank you for being part of this conversation. Next Tuesday on the Mental Health Hour, we'll be shifting our focus to another important conversation on Real Talk. The people who love them, understanding addiction, family impact, and the path forward. This is part 2 of our addictions panel series. When someone struggles with addiction, they are rarely the only one affected. Parents, partners, children, siblings, friends. Entire families often carry the weight of addiction alongside the person they love. Together, we'll explore the emotional impact addiction has on families, how loved ones can support someone without losing themselves, the importance of healthy boundaries, and the hope that healing is possible, not only for the individual, but for everyone affected. I'll be joined again by Dr. Adrian Sequeira, Josh Dale, and Andrew Roach for what promises to be an honest, compassionate, and deeply meaningful conversation. You don't want to miss it. So thank you for spending this evening with us on our 50th episode on the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay, Afrobeat Music, and Talk Radio with your host, Felicia Fishoff, registered psychotherapist and founder of Rooted in Resilience Psychotherapy and Wellness. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, your mental health matters. Peace